All right, we are live. I am Tori Chrisman, Tori Magoo 44 on the internet and TikTok now, and my guest is Chuck Beatty, who we are going to interview tonight, and we're going to have a chat. But I wanted to welcome you all. I was in Scientology for 30 years and escaped out in uh, this month, actually, of 2000. Now, what year did you leave?
March 29th, 2003.
Ah, and how long were you in Scientology?
In Scientology from May 1975 and then when I left the Sea Org on the 29th of March, I stayed
Ah,
another year and then came to Pittsburgh after that.
all
I stayed
right,
as a good standing Scientology public.
good. Hi, JB808. He just popped on. He does our little thumbnails for the sometimes, not on and off, but he's done some really good ones. And Gone Home, hello. This is the interview he's been waiting for. That's my friend Drew, who we
Drew,
protest. Yeah.
Scientology's evil. He's got that. Those two words. He's got the market on him.
I know he's a great guy. I met him in 2008, right around then when Anonymous came. That's when I met him, and he was never in Scientology, but he's been a great person to protest with. We've had a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about what would you like to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. Quick summary.
Okay.
College dropout, philosophy major, Arizona State University. I got in at the Phoenix Org downtown. Did intro to Scientology courses, the first course. Didn't believe in the personality test. I thought that was bullshit. I knew they were lying about Oxford capacity analysis. Bullshit. I knew that was bullshit. I mean, you look at the books, no bibliographies, no citations, no serious credibility. Obviously,
Right.
the name is hokey. Scientology, especially when Jeff Pomerantz says Scientology. I mean, did you know that LRH wrote some advices about Jeff Pomerantz?
No.
Yes, he did. That's
What?
why he's been such a diehard. I mean, LRH wrote a couple of positive things about him in the ASI Author Services Incorporated advices, and those have never been countered. So he's got a
Wow.
permanent halo on his head in LRH's eyes. Yeah. So that's why, he can kind of do no wrong.
Oh God, and he's trapped there. How
He's
awful.
trapped, exactly. Stuck in a
Oh,
win. Remember that phrase, stuck in a win?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so I got in at Arizona State University um, at a moment when I was thinking maybe it's a bad idea that I chose philosophy as my major because there's no future. And all of the people that work in the university, I don't know if you know, but Arizona University isn't like the best in the world. But I swear to gosh, any university, the people that have make it into faculty positions, they're smart cookies. So I could immediately go like, okay, I'm not that smart. I'm never going to make it there. And I was kind of doing philosophy just to understand the great philosophers in life. And I had
Sure.
all these, and then I was taking, illegal drugs at the time, which were popular from the late 70s. I mean, sorry,
Right.
early 70s, late 60s. And unfortunately, right after I took a bunch of them, that's when I got interested in one of the spin-off characters that was similar to Timothy Leary was a man named John Lilly, who was the dolphin movies made on him. And he was into powerful hallucinogenic drugs, laying in isolation tanks and having these cosmic experiences. And he really went off the deep end with that stuff. So I didn't want to do that, but he came to give a guest lecture. And at the end, during the frequently asked questions, when students are kind of interested, thinking, is there any future in going into any kind of like mind research with hallucinogenic drugs. And, there really isn't any future in that because they're illegal. They're felony drugs and they definitely mess your mind up. So, but people started to ask, well, what about these other mystical groups? And then people asked 3 or 4 questions about the different mystical groups, and Scientology came up. And he finally said, okay, I'm going to give you a group answer. And he listed off about 8 groups, and he said, Scientology's the worst, and stay away from all of them. And I was madly writing them all down. And then in the summer break, I then looked them all up and then tried to get in them. And then Scientology, of course, is the easiest to get into. As soon as you call them up, they tell you, come down immediately, And so I drove my little Volkswagen from my apartment where I lived in Phoenix. I should have gone to Janice Gillam's dad's place because he had a mission, and that was known to be a better place. And that was only a mile away from me, but I drove 3 or 4 miles down to the org. And the org, of course, they don't want to let you go once you get in there. So I got in there and then did all my courses for about 7-8 months, and then joined the Sea Org suddenly, because that's when my goal was to go exterior, was to have the out of the body experience, to recreate I was in Hubbard's terms, I manifested about 4 of the 7 what do they call it's the Green Form 40 XXX repair list. They're the 7 resistive case. I had at least 4 or 5 of the 7 resistive case traits.
So explain to these guys what a resistive case is.
Well, that's all the pseudotherapy of Hubbard. I've tried to get some of the people interested, and it's really, really difficult to get any outsider even interested. And have you ever had an interview with Holly? She's a little expert of everything Hubbard's ever written, and she's her and her partner are going to be going to the Patty Mower party, the HowdyCon thing, and but anyways, what I wanted to do was at least have a conversation about the CS53 and the Green Form 40 XXX, those 2 repair lists, because you remember Ron Norton?
Yeah.
And all the flag, what are called the case cracker auditors at Flag?
Well, I don't know if I know all of them, but I know
Leaky,
some.
remember Leaky Strom, Leaky Halders?
I'm horrible with names, so just go along.
Anyways, the case crackers are the ones who sit down with, a flag public and go through the CS53 long form thoroughly, and then the Green Form 40 XXX thoroughly. And doing that and a few other steps, that's one of the flag only rundowns for cracking a person's case. And you basically find out everything that's supposedly wrong with you and then fix it. So when I went to the RPF, the second time, I got a really thorough 7 months worth of the 53 and the Green Form 40 XXX. And if you have the time to do that, and like on the RPF, you have a pretty good amount of time to do that. I didn't find it too bad. You have a darn good art, and it's not bad, So,
right.
But of course, there's so much. I had a high tolerance. My brother says I have a real high tolerance level for being disappointed, suffering through stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, my alternative for getting into Scientology was Buddhism. So I thought to myself, well, you're not giving up all your possessions. You're not joining becoming a monk or nun like in Buddhism, but it's a sort of semi-deprived, non-middle class lifestyle for sure when you become a Sea Org member. So I knew all that. I mean, I was comparing the Sea Org to being in a Buddhist Sangha, the little groups that the Buddhist Theravada Buddhist, Polycanon Buddhism. That's what I'm into now, is Polycanon Buddhism as a layman. So I've finally gone back to my other choice that I had. At the same time, I was thinking of going into Scientology, which I should have just dumped that, and I should have
I
just.
was the same. I was kind of into Buddhism, and I should have just stayed there.
My second wife's brother-in-law was a professor at the University of Washington, and I only had a couple interactions with him on family matters when we interacted, like Christmas or something. I don't remember what. Anyways, and he was really into the Polycanon. So they're like, Polycanon. You know how like Scientology is all about just reading LRH, just skip everybody else's crap, just read LRH. Okay, so my kind of brainwashing from Scientology has done me a slight amount of good in that I just stick with the Buddha's teachings of the Polycanon. So I've read through there's 5 books of the Polycanon. So I read the first 2 and I'm on the 3rd right now. So I got like 3 more to go.
What is Polycanon?
You got a second? I'll show you. Oh no, I won't show you. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see one of my photos is the 5 books lined up there. They're about this thick.
What is your Facebook page? We'll put it on here.
Oh yeah. Well, if you go to Facebook and you look up my name, you find it.
Okay, so it's Chuck Beatty at Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Chuck.
I have a YouTube channel too, and I think Kelly's going to put that on there somewhere.
Okay, good. Yeah, she's good at that. She'll do that.
So I joined the Sea Organ in the late '75 in December, and then arrived at Flag Clearwater. Just as
you
the
were in
Apollo.
Clearwater?
Yeah, the Apollo vets just moved over to Daytona, I think in October. And then in December is when they all moved over from Daytona over to the Fort Harrison. And
yeah, I know that. You remember they had Save Sparkling Clearwater stamp out Scientology?
Yeah.
Where they were trying to get rid of Richard Tenney. So
yeah.
Milt Wolf, do you know who he is?
Of course.
Okay, so Milt, we had just moved from LA to Clearwater. And
must have been 76.
No, 79.
Oh, okay. So it's a couple of years later even.
Yeah. But it was really a nut house. And Milt Wolf called me in and he said, look, these people are insane. They're totally against us. And you have to handle it. And I said, me? I have a brand new baby. How am I? What about the Sea Org? And he said, well, this is top secret, but you can't ever tell anybody. But LRH was going to Daytona, and he got word that the FBI or CIA, whichever, were going to plant some drugs on the ship and then arrest him. So he zoomed around to the Fort Harrison to Clearwater, bought it under a phony name, and that's why they used a phony name. And that's what he said. And then
United Churches of Florida, we got the briefing.
Right. And so the guy that Richard Tenney, his whole thing was save Sparkling Clearwater, stamp out Scientology, vote for me, Scientologists are liars. And he said, Tori, we did lie. So you have to handle it. And there were only 4 public in Clearwater at the time. All the rest were Sea Org.
You're right.
So I was out there. I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I went up to this older lady. She had a protest sign and an American flag. And I went up to her and I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm against these people and blah, blah, blah. And, rattled off some stuff. And I said, look, let's get something straight. The only product that you have right now is this baby. My son is crying. That's it. You're not moving anybody out of Scientology. Isn't going to leave. They're not. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you have 1,000 people, which they did, honk out Scientology. They're not leaving. So just put down your flags and go home and do something positive. And so she did. She put her flags down and she left. So then I just started going person to person, person to person with just different things. And
Yeah, I
then
would
I
say
started going to,
the Guardian's office best move was getting. Well, you're kind of unique. I think everyone agrees you're the all-time best handler that the church ever had, ever.
well, it's just because I talk to people. I mean, honestly, that's all I do. It isn't like I handle anything. It's just I talk to them. Like my favorite story is with um, Jeff Hawkins. I was up there. No, it was what's the capital here? It's
DC?
Sacramento.
Oh,
No,
Sacramento.
here,
Okay.
Sacramento. So they were going to put in the high schools, not Scientology. This was just a local thing. They were going to put in the high schools that everybody could get an abortion. Any kid could get it. The girl could go into the school, and they would never tell the parents.
All right.
And so this lady was on the radio saying, "Look, I need parents to go up to Sacramento and tell the governor we can't do this." So I got my friend who is a Scientologist, and we went up there and we did it. We talked to them. And then on the way back, I got my hair cut because I said, look, I got to get my hair cut. And so I jumped into this, beauty salon. They washed my hair, but I have really thick hair. So I said, I don't have time to get it blow dried where it would look real pretty. And I said, it's fine. I'm just flying home. So now I come out and I go, let's go by the Scientology Center up there. And we go by and outside now, remember, I'm used to all these people, protesting in LA, right? Hundreds. And now there's one guy with a Xenu doll and one guy with a protest sign. That's it. And so I think, okay, no big deal. And I walk inside and they're all hiding at the back of an org. They're like, Toro. And I go, what is going on? And they go, those people are outside. And I was just like, I can't believe this. And so this other guy goes like this. Oh my God, Tori's here. If Tori's here and she'll help us, it will be good. And he said, will you? And I said, well, I'll give it my best shot, which is always what I say. I'll give it my best shot. It's not like I have any tricky thing that I do. So I go out there and I say, what do you guys know about Scientology? And, they're not talking to me. And they're very young kids, right? And they're not talking to me. And the guy with the dolls going by and, we're going back and forth. And let's say the guys, well, this isn't going to work. It never works. But let's say the guy's here in the window, anyway, the window is here, the guy is here, and I'm, just imagine if you're walking down a sidewalk and I'm looking at him and he's protesting and I can see in the reflection my hair, right? And he won't talk to me, right? So I think, all right, fuck it. And I go, look, I want to ask you a question, really. I want you to think about this. How do you like my hair? And he stops and at first he doesn't say anything. I said, look, man, I really mean it. Does it look really awful? It looks awful in the window. Can you just look at it and tell me if it looks awful or not? And he just bursts out laughing. And I said, what? And he said, my mother always asked me that, and I never know what to say. And he looks at his friend and he goes, you know what? Let's go home. And they both just pack up and leave. And I go in and they go, what did you do? And I said, I just asked them, how do you like my hair?
I
But
think
it's
of
just
two
so,
things of your successful actions. There's a book that was written by one of the LA area critics of Scientology, and it's the principle of sincerity. You're
right.
like you're like you're like in the 99th percentile of a genuine, sincere person who communicates clearly. People understand you. You're
Right.
When you say anything, people can immediately feel emotionally your sincerity. So you have like That's why you're off the charts. You're not like one of these computing, okay, this rule regulation is coming into effect. You're not a zombie. You're not you're not a PR zombie. I mean, some of the best PR people were really sincere. Like David Gaiman
Right.
wasn't too bad. Artie Marin wasn't too bad.
Right.
Tony Hitchman was a little bit stilted, he kind of like, some people were not that good at this. And then I mean, even slick, sort of foul mouthed Tommy Davis was pretty bad, and
Right.
Mike Rinder was pretty slick. He lied too. And you could kind of not really tell, but then he wasn't, you could see there's some sort of lack of sincerity deep down there. You got it. I'm Tony. There was a famous, you're comparable to over in the Vatican. They have,
come on.
wait, they have priests that are super duper personable people that have to go out and handle the crazies that show up at the Vatican. Your Scientology's comparable person. You get the gold statue for all time, and nobody will ever be able to do what you did. You were the best at the corner stuff. Like you did it all the time. It's CC Int, the guys that come. You just like.
They called me all the time. Yeah, they did. Okay, I have a million stories.
Sincerity. And then does Hubbard ever talk about the word sincerity? No. But it's almost a factor of good auditor presence, a good, honest doctor. The doctors are not going to lie to you and say, I'm sorry to tell you, but you look great. When he sees all the charts, you're going to die of cancer in 1 week, So you have to really be honest. So you have that quality. And then the other one is tag team. Not tag team, but you were like the ultimate tag team person to bring in. I tried to think of when we went to protest in 77. I was staff at Clearwater, and we went down to Tampa. Was it Tampa or St. Petersburg FBI building? And then we walked around with our stupid signs. We all got off of duty just to go protest there around the FBI building. And while we were there, I kind of was just watching. And the FBI are kind of transparent. They're just very transparent. And they saw all hundreds of us going around the FBI building with our signs, saying all these horrible things that now the geo signage was horrible. I mean, a person like you would never say the things that were on our signs. You would just talk like a regular person. But the FBI had their own person like you who came out into the crowd of us and then tried to schmooze us. They were so like a chameleon. Their spots were changing every second. They were about as lying and insincere and they dressed goofy. They dressed a little goofy, and I saw the same chameleon guy, and he was dressed goofy, talking to the two heads of the Tampa FBI in the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out on us. And I just happened to be at that point in the walking around the block, so I could see them. And I went straight over to the GO people, and all our GO people were doing watches on the corners of each block, so that they were trying to keep track of the FBI, trying to infiltrate us. And I said, that guy over there, he's FBI. I just saw him with the bosses. And he just came down. He was so transparent. And then they knew it too. I mean, the GO was already on. They knew all of the FBI figures. They already had a rogues gallery of all the FBI staff there in Tampa anyways. Right. So even though this guy was dressed kind of goofy and he came out to try to mingle with us, you remember in the 1970s, there was quite a clash of clothing so that people from earlier periods didn't quite fit with later periods. So you couldn't really get a 50-year-old back then to dress like a 20-year-old. It just didn't match. So he was too easily spotted just on the clothing only. And then his face, he did a transformation. And that was at that time supposed to be like one of these intel gathering FBI agents to go out into a crowd and kind of get the feel of what's really going on and interview us on the ground to find out what the hell we're doing, protesting them. And they didn't really get us, I don't think. So at that time, it was really kind of sad. I think I had the mindset, being anti-FBI and anti-US government, thinking I was a little more conspiratorial, but I've never fully bought into that. I've become more of a old fuddy-duddy, pro-government, pro-FBI, pro-police. I'm pro-society's institutions late in life now. But okay, so go back to your. But anyways, you Milt Wolf was, and then I had dealings with his wife later. She was at the int base when he was.
And we got that guy voted out of office. We did, and we didn't do anything
I stood right
bad.
next to him on. Remember in the days when the Fort Harrison had the auditing, and then the Clearwater building was where the outer org training for administrative students was, and then a little bit later the TR's pilot was done in the Clearwater building 2 down the street. So I had to walk back and forth. I was the course supervisor. So I was the course supervisor straight from 1977 until 1983. I had to be there on time to call roll and do the whole 9 yards. And I walked right next to Tenny, who was sitting there with this just one day before the election, still trying to get everybody to honk and protest. And I chatted with them for a second. And it really was strange, the kind of brainwashing that we had in our heads. We were told to react to SPs and stuff like that. I just couldn't buy it, even though he was.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing either.
I just didn't really buy it. And even when I stood right next to him, it didn't feel like he was like, it was more what was in my head rather than him,
Did you know Kenny Lipton by any chance?
Yes.
So, okay, I got to tell you this story. I had trained as a SEC checker so I could co-audit FPRD, meaning you'd audit me, I'd audit you. Right? But
Yep.
you had to be a SEC checker to do that. So anyway, I did the training, and now I always wanted to audit the Sea Org because I knew they rarely get any auditing. Scientology always promises them all the bridge, and they never give a shit. So whenever I had to take a PC, I'd get a Sea Org guy. So I'm auditing the Sea Org guy, and he's
out of AOLA.
Yeah.
Did he come over from CC to get it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know somehow I got him as a PC.
Okay.
And he's talking about Mr. Lipton, and the guy's terrified. I mean, he's like absolutely terrified. And you and I got in Scientology around the same time. I got in 69, you're in the 70s. But, it was different then. You know what I mean? It was so different. And so now, this was kind of the Nazi end of it, different end of the triangle rainbow. And this guy is just terrified. And he's like, Mr. Lipton. And I finally said, you know what, that's it. Set the cans down. Because I realized this is a present time problem for this guy. You're not supposed to audit over a present time problem. So I said, set the cans down. And he set him down. And I said, where is this Mr. Lipton? And he said, he's across the street, around where you were saying that's where the RPF is and stuff like that. But
so
that's all. Yeah, so we're across the street. So we go across the street, we go upstairs, and he goes, he's in there. And it says, Mr. Lipton. And I open up the door, and there's Kenny, who's my friend from CC from years ago. And he's got on this blue uniform and, big hat and all the gold things. And I said, Kenny? And he goes, Tori, how are you? And I said, what the fuck are you doing? I said, this guy is terrified. What are you doing to him? He is absolutely terrified of you. He won't even talk to you. This is not Scientology, Kenny. And, I don't know if I think he ended up passing away, right?
He has.
Yeah. But I don't know if it helped him wake up at all. But I wasn't trying to because I was still in. You know what I mean? I was just like trying to get him to stop being a Nazi.
That's good. That's incredible. In fact, he came from that generation of CC staff celebrity center staff who were
Right.
all alive when Yvonne was alive, and they had a whole different, their whole
Right.
demeanor and the way they ran things at CC
Completely.
Cub. That's
Completely.
they're brainless today. They're brainless. But
I know
I
it's really scary to see.
okay. So here's the word though. When we're old in the teeth now. We're old people. Okay. So if there's any wisdom, uh, let's talk a little bit shop. And this is the word it applies to you. Sincerity. Sincerity. Is it in Scientology? No
No,
fucking way. Is Hubbard
no, no,
sincere? No. He's a
no.
con man. The word Scientology oozes con.
Right.
So what? So we all agree the quote, but genuinely good, sincere people carried on their backs and have been carrying Scientology all these years. It isn't because of con man Hubbard's little trickle down deviousness. And even the GO people, I would agree, Milt Wolf was a darn good guy. His wife was a really nice lady. And a lot of the people did. I mean, I mean, they were just genuinely decent, good people. And then on the other hand, even with training, like you were a trained Geo OSA
Not
handler.
Geo. Not Geo. No. I
Okay,
talked to Laurel Sullivan and I
yeah,
asked her. She was LRH's PR on the ship,
okay,
right?
I
And
know
so
her.
I said, look, and she was now she's out, and
Yeah,
I was at Nancy Maney's house. This was years ago, and I said, Laurel, I have to ask you a question. I have actually had quite a bit of success as a volunteer for OSA. You know, they'll call me up and say, we need you to do X, and I'd go over and get the people to leave a lot of times. Not a lot, but more than they did for sure.
oh
And
yeah.
I said, they always just do the what are your overs, what are your crimes, and everybody stays for all day. And she looked at me and she goes, you were never trained in LRH PR tech, were you? And it was the first time I thought about, oh my God, she's right. No, I'm not. It's really from my dad, who was a broadcaster on TV and funny and just good with people, and my mother, who was really good with people. And I just sort of grew up in kind of a PR family. And I realized this doesn't have anything to do with Scientology,
No,
really. It's just sincerity, like you're saying.
yeah.
And she said, that's why you're successful. She said, we who were trained in LRH PR tech were kicked out of every single port in the world. Isn't that interesting?
And I've read the books by the British embassy personnel when the ship was kicked out of uh, Greece. It's called The Commodore and the Colonels, which is a really good book to read because then you get
Oh,
the viewpoint of the British embassy people who are like Intel connected, your MI6 Intel connected people, but still, they still have a genuinely solid viewpoint on what was wrong. There are a lot of mistakes that the various intel agencies just didn't care. I mean, but the problem is Hubbard. The problem always go back. You know, some of the greatest. I mean, I hate to praise Arnie Lerma for any reason, but the one thing that I learned from Arnie was when a person's uh, high praise of LRH finally erodes, then they start to distance themselves from Scientology. And I believe that only happens. And I just reread Mike Rinder's incredible book. The first time I read it, I was too overstimulated, and I was like, wow, I was just too overstimulated because when I read the ex-members books, some of them are just so horrifying that, you know, I have to put them down. I go like, wow, this is just too much bad news. And the beatings that went on at the ed base, that just had too much of an impact on me. I couldn't take reading it, and it just like it fuzzes up my brain for a couple of months after I read all the horrible stuff. But anyways, the back to the the main point, though, which is like why you were so successful, I think is appreciated in the outside world, where you have like you know, you had land in the land of genuine, sincere people, and then you came into Scientology, where not everybody. I mean, a lot of people. I think you know that's why a lot of people come back to the real world and they go like, "Wow, I like you used to call it the Truman Show." You know,
Right.
when you get out in the real, it's actually better. You know, it's like people are more tolerant, people are more fair. They give you a lot more leeway, almost one
Yeah.
for like even the latest Catherine Olson Christensen, who's like Tony Ortega has like a little chat thing going on, and I went to her Substack site and read some stuff, and she makes that same point. She notices when she was a Science Sea Org member and she had a serious illness thing and she went to the hospital, she was terrified by all the ramifications of what that meant and stuff like that. And then she had another more minor surgery today as a regular person, and everybody was really nice with her, and you know where she worked, and they gave her time off. They didn't even like give her hassle her at all. But then your same identical experiences inside the Truman Show of
Right.
Scientology is a whole different story. So yeah, so there's it's I remember because I've talked to since leaving. I was interested in talking to the new religious movement academics, and I went down and met four of them, and then stayed in communication with them all through the 2000s, between 2005 and 2010 or so. Uh, and I tried to, I thought I could help them change their apologist views towards Scientologists a little bit. I thought that, you know, that's kind of really not anyone's job. You just have to lay out the facts enough so that if somebody who thinks they're an expert of Scientology goes through all the facts, they'll come to their own conclusions. And then one of them, one of the smartest, is Professor David Bromley of I think Virginia Tech University. I can't remember, one of the University of Virginia or Virginia Tech University. He's an academic there. He said, and he was one of the ones who was fighting against Professor Kent on the use of the word cult. I mean,
Right.
that to me is a red herring. The whole goddamn word cult
It
in
is.
my act, it's a red herring. Average people are allowed to swear and allowed to have quick one word words that kind of identify a group. And when a
Right.
group tips over and they fulfill the majority of the Robert J. Lifton criteria for what a totalistic group is, okay, baby, that group is a cult. You know what I mean? So that can be like a popular definition. Trying to argue that in academia and not give Scientology some foot in the door on being a quote religion. The Bainbridge argument for a religion is the group believes in supernatural beliefs. Well, what's
Right.
Scientology's supernatural beliefs that were encrusted with ghosts? We got a lot of space ghosts on us. We got to get those space ghosts off, you know? So like, I mean, Scientology, isn't that a funny catch-22? Because to me, the OTs, the people who made it up to OT3, learned about how to get rid of the body thetans, the ghosts, the Xenu's ghosts. That's what body thetans are. They're Xenu's earth-dumped ghosts, which stick on us. You know what I mean? So it's a supernatural spiritualism to help alleviate the bad memories of the ghosts so that they free up and pop off us. You know what I mean? It's like it's supposed to be like popping off us like bubbles, you know, and they're going, oh, you know, the happy ghosts making all these Casper to the ghosts off of our body thetans that are, you know, implanted with the R6 implants by Xenu, you know, during the fourth dynamic engram. I mean, today it kind of all makes sense to me, you know, the spiritualism part of Scientology. I could have bought it. I mean, because one of the two books that I wanted to bring up was this one.
Oh
Can you see
yeah.
that?
Oh wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one. I only keep two books today. I keep that one and I keep this one because I wanted to see if if they still have the rule about not beating up anybody, because it really bothered me that Miscavige was beating up people. And the
And
rule
do
is
they?
right there in the ethics books. It says physical violence is not supposed to be part of any punishment. Yet it is. It's right in the
Yeah,
knowledge reports. That's one of the
right.
brilliant things about Mark Bunker. I mean, Mark Bunker, you know what a hole in one type of person is? Mark
Yeah,
Bunker is kind of a hole in one type of person. He's hit so many holes in ones, in my
right.
opinion, in
Yeah.
his life. But anyways, you're in a class. There's nobody like you ever. Uh,
Well, thank you.
you're you're getting up to that stage of being like the lady who was in Hemet. Remember the lady in Hemet who's passed away, the little old
Ida,
lady,
Ida
Ida.
Camber.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah, she was great. She was
she
really
was.
great.
She was in a class of her own.
Yeah, she was. She was. Her son, for anybody who didn't know her, was in Scientology and wouldn't talk to her, and so she
Yeah,
became a critic. And she actually was in touch with the congressman that was going, with
Leo Ryan.
yeah, Leo J. Ryan.
Oh
She
no.
he wrote her and he said, "I'm going to take on Scientology next. I'm
Oh
going
my.
down for what was the name of the thing?
Yeah, the Kool
No,
Aid
what
thing.
was it?
Jim Jones. Jim
Yeah,
Jones.
I know.
The
Well, anyway,
mass murder.
he was going to go down there and talk to them, and then he was going to come back and do Scientology. Never made it. She showed me the letter. It was like, wow, that's kind of
That is so heavy. I mean, I can't even imagine because there's the mass grave at a promontory place. I think somewhere overlooking San Francisco today. It almost
yeah,
throws me into grief thinking about it.
yeah. And she's a real kick-ass person. She lived out by Hemet, by
Yeah,
Gold,
that's
and
right. She
so
lived right
we
there.
would
She was
we'd
ground
be
zero for the
yeah.
cult.
So we'd protest out there, and then we'd go over to her house afterwards. And one time I was there, and this Sea Org person came up to the upper steps, and she had these Xenu things on her walls and shit like that. And she said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And she's a little tiny thing, she's little tiny. And she looks at her and she goes, "What the hell are you doing here?" And she goes, "Well, you were over here in Scientology, blah, blah, blah." She goes, "Get off my porch right now and don't ever come back. If you come back, I'm calling the police." She was just like kick ass.
Yeah.
She was something else. What was your position when you were in the Sea Org?
All right. So I failed as an auditor. My goal was to become a class 12 so I could co-audit when you get to be a class 12, you have to do the L rundowns. So I thought, okay,
Right.
what's the best sort of lower income way to get to do the L's, which is totally unrealistic because the L's is only delivered to sort of upper middle class people who have big
Right.
bucks, and they don't want some little a cheesy auditor. They want a decent, auditor. So if you look at who the class 12s and their backgrounds, they're usually really sharp people. So that kind of is a problem of Scientology right there, in that not everybody can really become a genuine class 12. You really have to be a sharp people. I mean, Karen de la Clare's do not grow on trees. Class 12s do not grow on trees. It's a long road to become a real class 12, even if it is all quackery. And I believe it's all spiritual quackery because it's spiritualism, and it has to do with your past lives, horrible memories, and using the meter just right. But the meter only works with somebody who believes that it works. It doesn't work on somebody who's learned how to game the meter. I thought, like, wow, a lot of people learned how to game the meter. I never learned how to game the meter.
Me neither.
I
Yeah.
was a sucker. I believed the meter, So yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
didn't
too.
fit. Yeah. Anyways,
So,
back to
so
your
what
question.
happened? You failed at the auditor. So then
Oh
what?
yeah, so I failed it as an auditor because uh, there's I don't know what it is, a neurological condition of having a bouncy leg all the time, and
Oh,
my leg was bouncing so bad that it hit the table and knocked it. And my FCCI said, didn't red tag, but he asked for a DFP interview, and he said he wanted a different auditor because he didn't think a flag auditor's leg should bounce and hit the table. That was it. I was done. So then I became a admin course supervisor for the outer org trainees. And then I lucked into working in a really established working installation. Remember that term, working installation? It's like a little
Right.
part. Okay, so Al Baker. I don't. You never met Al Baker. He was one of the most enthusiastic, high-powered. Go get him. He's like a football coach, athletic guy, 6'4", big, tall, black guy. Really personable. He grew up as a Catholic in a big, African American family in Detroit. All of his family members, well-to-do, doing really well. Like a solid middle to upper middle class black family in Detroit. And that's the other thing. If you think about it, Jesse Prince came from a pretty solidly middle class black family too, and I think he was a black Catholic too. So if you think about some of the influences of people that were successful in Scientology, some of them had pretty good upbringings in some respects. So anyways,
Right.
I worked in the Flag Bureau Executive College, it was called. A lot of people have that mixed up with the Flag Executive Briefing Course. But anyways, for that little window of time, there was the thing called the Flag Bureau, which was top management. That would be the same today as, well, there really isn't. It'd be the same today as kind of like the exec strata and kind of the exec strata in relation. I mean, the things changed a little bit because it used to be the Commodore staff aides, which were the seven, I call them like the seven disciples of Hubbard, you know what I mean? Because they had their divisional responsibilities that fit with the org board. In the Commodore staff aides to Commodore staff captain, LRH personal office, PERSCOM. The LRH personal office was kind of like the top LRH entourage, which would be kind of like, and that's where the CMO was actually part of the old LRH personal office. So, I mean, I was all into the whole history of the admin nuts and bolts and the whole transition from there to the watchdog committee and into the executive strata and then to what it is today, which is like kind of blown to bits, which in a way is a good thing. I think that it's kind of disintegrated.
Right.
But I think the thing that it's a valid criticism that there were better people all throughout the movement's history who've been sort of ejected out of the movement. So therefore, what's left is pretty much inexperienced people sort of struggling along, running things. I wouldn't say that I was like super competent as a person, but I love the job. I love being a course supervisor from 77 till 83. And then I had and then I went off to do the routing forms project, which is a paper pushing project. Routing forms are a little checklist of activity when a public person walks in the front door to reception in a Scientology offices. You're supposed to pick up your routing form, and then that tells you which steps to go through to go pay your money, go into the course room, do this step, do that step. And it tells the instructions for what the staff members are supposed to do to you standardly, administratively, what the paper pushing is. So I was in the course of doing that after having been for 5 or 6 years in the course rooms where I was helping, you're kind of like a waiter. A supervisor is kind of like a waiter, but you have authority because you call roll and nobody can go to the bathroom with that. So it's like being trapped in a restaurant and you say, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And the waiter says, "Okay, you can go to the bathroom." So the supervisor isn't the one who's lecturing the students, but you just sort of watch them. You watch them kind of like a hawk to make sure they don't go pay MUs. But I never was a hawk type. I never was that. I was always the help type. But that's only because of Al Baker, because Al Baker wasn't the hawk type. And he was my role model for a good supervisor. And we had a director of training, Linda McCarthy. She was more the hawk type. But she was still nice. She was tough, but she had a heart of gold. So I walked into a really good, well-functioning administrative course room. And then we had Greg Wilhare as our superior. He'd been busted and going up and down in his positions. At the time, he'd been busted as the commanding officer of the Flag Service Org, and he was over back in the Flag Bureau at that time. And this was before he went off to go be at, what was it? La Quinta or wherever he went to be on
Yeah.
the New World Corps, and then he rose from there to be an RTC and all that stuff later. Anyways, I crisscrossed paths with his son Darius quite a bit on the RPF. When I was on the
Oh,
final RPF, his son was on the RPF, and I worked with Darius quite a bit. And
that,
I had I started to have my doubts about that the Sea Org kids were benefiting by growing up as Sea Org kids. At that point, I thought, you know, I think that there's it's almost like a trap. A kid who gets grown into a Scientology family, who are like really, you know, in good standing family, is going to get damaged one way or the other until they can kind of get out of their parents' lives. They should
right.
remain, of course, good roads, good weather with their parents, but man, they really need to get outside education to get out
Yeah,
of
they do. Now, Professor Kakan is one of the people here, and he
yeah,
has a question for you, which
sure.
is, did you supervise the HC HSCSC?
Yeah,
So what
all of
time
them.
frame?
Okay, so I did that one after Jeff Walker had re-implemented. If it, now he might be if he's either talking about the AC, the Hubbard Ethics and Justice course uh, thing. I did. Like for instance, I helped train Rob Spick, who there to become an HEGASC was a higher level ethics officer than just a regular ethics officer. You became like this expert, and that kind of launched you either to be a GEO staff member or something else. And then
Right.
that's one thing. And then the other type is to be a sec checker. So which one is he talking about? The sec checker or the super ethics officer? Which one's he talking about?
I
Can
don't
you
know.
ask him? Oh, he's going to shit answer
Professor
you.
Kakan, yeah, Professor Kakan, you need to ask. He wants to know if it's, what was the question?
The
Whether you're
sec
an ethics
checker
officer,
trainee or the super
secretary,
ethics officer trainee?
or the super ethics officer training? Which one?
Hubbard Standard course. Oh, he's talking about the course soup course. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. Now, I was a flag trained Gold Star intern flag course soup. No, I mean, if you weren't flag Gold Star, that's the top.
Yeah,
Flag service org Gold Star.
right.
You get
I
the
have a
gold seal.
funny question.
You'll
You
get your
mentioned
gold seal for 3 months. You have to be upstat as a flag course soup for 3 months to get your gold stamp of approval there. I still
gold
have it. I
stamp.
still have that stupid cert. I could pull it out right now if you want.
I
They let
believe
me
you.
take it. They let me take that cert when I left.
Sure. Well, it's
No, but
yours.
they didn't let me take all my wedding photos and a whole bunch of other shit.
Oh, wow.
When you leave the Sea Org through the RPF, whoever your security guards, they go through everything that you own, and then they take back stuff like all of the perky stuff that I had. Oh, like some of my wedding photos had, because my second spouse was an OSA staff member, so I had Heber and photos of all these other people in there. All those photos disappeared.
Oh, that's too bad.
But
Well, you mentioned the Watchdog Committee, and a lot of people don't. I don't even know if they still have that, if they do.
yeah,
But it used to be way up. You know, it was way high up was the Watchdog Committee, and I had been trained at CC in LA, where you were at one time, and on with James Fiducia. I
okay,
don't know if, and
I remember him.
anyway, yeah, he was the supervisor, and they said to me, Tori, you've got to take this. I was on an internship, and they said you've got to take this person into to audit him tonight. And I said, look, I'm completely filled with people. I can't take another person. And they said you have to. He's going to New York tomorrow, so just fly his ruse. Just see if he's okay to fly. So I take him in session, and the guy goes, well, when I leave for New York in 3 months, and I'm like, 3 months? And I get out of session and I go to James Fiducia. What the hell am I going to do? And he gets out the auditor's code. And part of it is no one can ever tell you, it doesn't matter how high they are in the org board, no one can ever tell you what to do as far as an auditor. You know, they can't tell you to drop a PC, take a PC, something like that, ever. And he really made me, I think I had to clay demo it, you know, I had to really get it. So now I go to Flag a few years later to do that co-audit thing with the, you know, the FPRD thing. And I was on an internship there and they wanted me to take in somebody to audit them. And I said, well, I only audit Sea Org. So I got a Sea Org guy and I'm doing a sec check on him. And then they pull me out and they say, okay, get rid of this guy because you're going to take on some executives. We want you to audit the executives. And I said, no. And they said, no. And I said, yeah, no. And so they kept bringing higher and higher executives at Flag, you know, coming down and saying, you know, you have to let go of this auditor. So, you know, you can take on you have to let go of this PC so you can take on another PC. And I kept saying no. And so finally the watchdog committee comes in, the lady that was part of that, and she goes, I am the watchdog committee and I want to know who trained you, you know, like that you can do this, like hold my space, right? And I said, James Fiducia and the auditor's code. And they said, okay, then you can finish the Sea Org guy. So I got to, but you're the only person that's ever mentioned the watchdog committee.
You know, the basics, what is this? Okay, so the brainwashing, well, I'll just call it the brainwashing because most people who are going to ever see this are going to just assume that any of us who became so literal that we took this crap for real and we believe it, like the auditor's code and the course supervisor's code. In fact, the reason I even have this book sitting here, because I have yet to be interviewed by anyone who gets to this level of discussion we're getting at right now, which is the highest level principles that the people that are given. And if you were to rack up, if you were to do like a listing of all the high crimes that an auditor can possibly violate. So therefore, the first thing you're trained, when I was trained at Flag as an auditor, was the auditor's code. You never evaluate. You never invalidate. That is so sacrosanct. It is off the charts. It is
Right.
like you're out of the chair. You're out of the chair and you won't make it as a Flag auditor if you express any bit of in your TRs invalidation or evaluation. That's why the Flag auditors, that's why somebody like Karen Dare LeCaire is off the charts. She would just never even validate or evaluate. It's just in their DNA, like you. That's probably why. And then I wanted to praise you for another thing which people don't appreciate. All those years that you did do auditing as the AOLA sort of field auditor who came and did that stuff. My God, there wasn't anybody in the Sea Org of the same quality of auditor's codeness that you possessed, because it was in your innate beingness already prior to being in Scientology. You were a natural. You're like a natural auditor. And that was been a word. When I first joined Sea Org, that was a hidden standard amongst auditor trainees. I mean, some people, and even Jeff Walker, appreciated anybody setting foot on Flag cramming. And when he was the big asshole suppressive cramming officer, but he could appreciate a natural auditor because, and you could have been a Flag auditor. There's no question about it. You could have been a 12 easily.
I know that was my goal, except they routed me out of the Sea Org because of epilepsy.
I can't believe it. And then, you know what I think? Remember the Mitch Brisker made a sort of a slighting remark, but I think it is extremely true. there's a lot of shitty idiots in the lower ranks that weed out the good people and piss them off so badly they get out of Scientology usually quicker. And then
Yeah,
only and that's one of the big lessons about Scientology. There's a word that's called eschewing. It's called sort of like a magnetic force that sort of kicks out good people. So Scientology, unfortunately, has sort of like that. It allows so many kind of like idiot robotic people to get into the positions that they kick out the generally good people, and
good
that's why
people.
missions can get away with having more good people who just got to do the good part of Scientology on each other.
Exactly.
So it's a rat race bureaucracy problem. It's a social. Do you know? I mean, I was always interested in kind of like getting a proper, deeper understanding assessment of the flaws in Scientology along traditional sociology. I haven't read all of Professor Kent's stuff that he's done on Scientology, but I've always felt nobody's done any good comparative religion stuff with Scientology. Remember how the GO used to I mean, I know the OEC volumes back to front, the green volumes, and of course the one about HR and ethics is called Division One. So in the Division One, then there's also this little writing in there called the historical precedents of ethics, and it's this big long paper about the Buddhist ethics system, not the Polycanon Buddhists, but some other sect of Buddhism. I can't remember where. I think it's Tibetan Buddhism, and they have this whole elaborate ethics system in Buddhism, and that's always stuck in my mind all these years because I remember my big choice in life was, should I do Scientology or should I just like hold off and do Buddhism? Anyways, so I wish I would have gone. Anyways, but anyways, in the historical,
You wouldn't know me and all of these other people
yeah,
if you'd gone the other way. So there's that. I got to ask you some questions because
sure,
there's 12 of them now. So
okay.
Kelly said, Chuck, who were you talking about in the comments you just posted in Tori's last protest stream?
Oh, Chris Maney
Oh,
and
Chris
Nancy Maney.
Maney. Yeah,
Chris Maney. They were both. Well, Chris was CC. He
right.
was part of the generation that was
With
working with
us.
Yvonne. So
Yeah,
he had a different mindset. He would have been a great staff captain, but he got ground up when
I
when you get
know.
up to the top ranks and the politics. Even when some of the other who are considered, I mean, Bill Franks and Kerry Gleason and Alex Zabersky and these earlier top managers, and there was a term, it's even in the old green dictionary called top management. So Chris would have been an excellent Commodore staff captain had he been
Yeah,
allowed to maintain. But then there was a transition right after Chris, and then Nancy wrote her book. Nancy Maney rose to be Commodore staff aide 6. She replaced Diana during that year when Diana flaked out.
yeah. All
and
right,
then
thank
and
you.
then Nancy bit it when all the mission holders kind of blew up because
Right.
Division 6 had to do with the missions, and that is a major. That's a book in itself. The discussion of how the missions fell apart, and then the behind the scenes management turmoil and the persons, and then the Mike Goldstein interviews between
Yeah.
Janice Grady and Mark Fisher with Mike Goldstein explain a lot because it's filled in for me because I have a zillion questions, but
Now,
unfortunately, a lot
where
of
are
it's,
those? Where are the Mike Goldstein?
oh my God, they're on Peeling the Onion. They're on Janice
Oh,
Grady and Mark Fisher's interviews. You
okay.
mentioned earlier, uh, how did Miscavige even consider himself higher than WDC? That's best answered by somebody like uh, Mark Fisher, and then the people that interview and take the input from Lois Restorff, who I think is about ready to be interviewed herself. If Lois had a series of really good questions to answer, I mean, I've often thought, I'm at the point in life where I'd just like to call. I'd like to call and ask, do you mind? Could you suffer through 4 hours of questions just to answer all my questions, just for my own curiosity? And then Mark Fisher has done some of the best interviews. explanations. And then even Mike Rinder's book, the Mike Rinder's book, I just finished it the second time, and I think I'm going to have to go through. I mean, life is short. I'm 74. How old are you? You like 79 or 78 or 77?
78 going on 79 this month, June
I mean,
27th.
I mean, if you got another 6 years in life, then can you reread all the books, and then hopefully we can ask Lois Reesdorf, ask Terry Gamboa,
I wouldn't
ask.
waste a minute reading all the books. I wouldn't.
See these boxes over here? See these boxes right there?
Oh my God, yeah.
Those are bankers' boxes. Guess what's in them? The last of my Scientology materials. And like, that was one of the things you could ask me is like, what are you going to do with those? I'm about ready to toss them, and then I'll be free of all this crap. But then on the other hand, who are the hobbyists? It's better to call the people that are in Scientology now, who are never in and never wish to be in, hobbyists. It's best just to keep it as a hobby. Don't get too tied up in it. Don't get too much upset by it. I mean, call the police. I think that's the biggest thing I learned from outsiders. I remember back in the mid 2000s, one of the outsider people on the chat side said, "Why don't you guys just call the police?" And I thought about it. That is really, there were a couple times that I should have called the police. And then it's 15 years later that I thought, oh my God, I should have got up after the incident happened and was let go. And we were all walking out to dinner. You slip out and you get out to a phone, and then you just walk over to the police station. You turn yourself in, and then you're gone. You're a goner as the moment you go report it to the police. So your life is over as a Sea Org member if you go to the police, and that you would be stopped from going and reporting stuff to the police, stuff
Sure.
you witnessed with your eyes.
Yeah.
Beatings.
Yeah.
Like I saw my commanding officer at Incom, and I've mentioned his name in the chat sites prior, beating on a woman. And there was about 6 or 7 of us that saw this at the same time. And then his boss, our commanding officer Incom, had a boss in RTC who was standing right next to him, egging him on. So therefore I knew, and I remember when Marty was very helpful on his side, I recounted that incident there, and I asked Marty, do you think that came down from Miscavige, that whole, attitude? And yeah, it was right in the middle of that period when the beatings were, there were these ups and downs of Miscavige beating people, screaming at other people not to, because after 1982, that was the license. And remember the late Denise Brennan,
Yeah.
Larry Brennan, I asked them, what was it really like that? Was it serious, like slugging and beating? And he said, yep, it was taken that way. You remember Roger Barnes?
Yeah.
Okay, Roger Barnes was the old mission. He was the first, I think, CO SMI, commanding officer, Scientology Missions International. And his boss was John Axel, who was WDC 4 SMI. And there was an LRH order, which I read in 1983 when I was doing the routing for the project. When we get into my history, I only got to 83. So when I was on that project, I got to read all the private LRH traffic that Janice Grady has talked about. And Mike Rinder talks about it too, extensively in his book. It's not public. Some of it is public. Some of it leaked out. But the one that was most alarming was regarding John Axel. And LRH said, if you see WDC, Watchdog Committee member, whose sole function is the whole operation of Scientology Missions International, LRH said, spit on him for me. Normal person's reading that, you would take it the same way you read knowledge reports, where it's kind of figurative. That, so I would have taken it figuratively. But per everyone, Jesse Prince, Denise Brennan, They all agreed it was not that way. It was tough. It was slug and spit. So both John Axel and uh, Roger Barnes were walking across the lawn or some part of the base together. And that's when Miscavige and his little entourage came upon the two, slugged and spat on both of them. And I just couldn't believe that they literally did that. So one of the first phone calls I asked around, and I said, like, does anybody know where Roger Barnes is? Because he would know about that incident. And they said, oh, yeah, he was there. So they sent me this phone call, his number. And I think I phoned Roger. I said, Roger, did it really happen? And he said, yes. But what was interesting is Roger was kind of past that. I don't know if you remember Jim Dincalci. He's a very highly well thought of person. His big thing was forgiveness. He was LRH's, he's one of those two guys that went with LRH that year to New York in 1973. And he was LRH's medical liaison officer. Really nice guy. Off the chart nice guy. His big thing was forgiveness. So I could see that also with Roger Barnes was he didn't really let it traumatize him in any way at all, you know. And his, you know, Roger just said one simple thing. He says, like, I said, I asked him, what's your advice, Roger? He says his advice was learn a career and then just pursue that, you know, like shift gears as soon as you can once you get out of the Sea Org. Once you get out of Scientology, just shift gears into a new career. I thought, okay, that's like golden advice. And then by somebody who was spit on and punched by Miscavige, you know what I mean?
Right. But you got to move on. There you go. All right. So Professor Kakan's other question is, are you saying CS53 is now run at FSO now?
Yeah, the Case Supervision Series 53, which is just a correction list. There's the CS53 short form and the CS53 long form, and the two of them, it's called the Case Completion Rundown. This one
but
of the
it's
flag
not only it's not only at flag because they do
anybody
it at
no anybody can do it, but it's part of the Case Completion Rundowns, and that's why the flag case cracker auditors were supposedly the best. Now, would I agree that anybody who's a practitioner today, who's outside, you know, a splinter Scientologist, are they better? Well, I think it's been proven that they are. Trey Lotz, give me a break. He still has people coming to be audited by him to this day. There are other people. I mean, Leon Steinberg, I believe he continued to practice Scientology. Gwen North. There's a number of Class 12s who continue to apply Scientology auditing with friends and people that were already exited from the whole 1980s era. So the older Class 12s kind of brought they had word of mouth. I mean, and they were just exemplary human beings. They're kind of like you, Tori. I mean, they're really good people, you know what I mean?
You're very kind. All right, now 49ers for Life said Tori also has an alter ego named Margaret back when she was a handler. LOL. Yeah,
That's good.
I thought it was Katie, but anyway, that was when Mark Bunker came. What happened was Osa said to me, it was the 4th of July coming up, and they had their big 4th of July party. And they said, look, there's this guy with a camera. You know, and he had one of the big cameras. And they said, we got to get him out of here. We don't want him filming. And I said, okay. And so they said, just go with this guy from England. And he had a very English accent. And so he said, just go together and get him off the street. So we walk over and I go, hello, you know, with my phony English accent. and Bunker goes, hello, what's your name? And I thought I said Katie, but maybe it was Margaret. Either way, it was another name than my name. And then the other guys said his name. And, you know, we tried to get Bunker to leave. And, you know, they were awful. There's a video online about that 4th of July thing, and they were just
Yeah.
awful to Mark. Yeah, they were really mean to him. And both Harold and I liked Mark. We, even though we were in Scientology, we could see the goodness of him. You know, he was a good guy. And even though he was filming, it's like, okay, he's filming. You know, it's not like it's the end of the world. He's taking a film of Scientology. I mean, how good can Scientology be if they got to get the camera people? You know, if there's, and this is true for TikTok today. You know, all the TikTokers come, and I don't know if you know this, but they've shut down every building in, you know, okay. And the TikTokers come there as a joke, and they're outside there, right? And then they put it up on TikTok. So, you know, it's like, to me, if it was me, I would just invite them in. Say, all right, come on in. You know, what do you want to know?
I'd love to talk another hour or two with you,
But you
because
got to go to bed.
I don't have to go. I could go 2 hours. I could go 3 hours with you right now. It brings up issues that I feel like meaning people who've wasted a lot of our brain moments talking, thinking, how can we, how could this be? How could it be better? How to quote unquote change things? What's, I mean, there are plenty of ways that things could be better. I think the biggest decision I came to was, no, I'm not a Scientologist because I don't believe in the supernatural, and I'm kind of an atheist Buddhist. Not exact. I don't believe in the supernatural stuff of Buddhism. I have a strictly materialist scientific view of Buddhism practice to, uh, you know, better yourself through that way. But I do believe that there are genuinely sincere and more decent splinter Scientologists. I'm pretty much convinced of it. In fact, when I had a little bit of, like, what do you call it, power or leeway, I had media coming to me for the few years in the 2000s, between 2004 and 2010, 11, 12, up until when Lawrence Wright did his book. And then the years that I interacted with the apologist academics, and I made contacts, and I've thought that the discussion of certain things are just kind of can't be discussed. I haven't found anybody who even wants to discuss some of these things. But I think that's kind of what I've noticed, even the writings of the people that are not really taken seriously, like the religious academics. You read 80% of the stuff they write, you go like, oh, this is garbage, this is garbage, this is garbage. Oh, 10% of it, you go like, oh, there's something I didn't know. Like, and then some things stick out, and you go like, so you have to read through a lot of garbage in life, and then you find some good stuff. So it's a tedious process. So then in something as big as, what the thing that Chris Shelton interacting with that psychologist or psychologist person who said that Hubbard possibly whacked his head and had temporal lobe epilepsy, which caused him to be this automatic writer, just this prolific outputter of stuff. So unfortunately, Hubbard wrote this massive bureaucratic system, which some people, unfortunately, were too stupid not to just reject the whole thing, but got immersed in it to then remember there were these. I don't know if you were reading ARS back. I used to go back and read the ARS stuff from the 1990s. The stuff that I love, Dennis Ehrlich, and some of the other great critics would call it the picking the raisins out of the turds of Scientology. Remember that phrase? Anyways,
Yeah.
but to true blue Scientologists that are splinter Scientologists that just still love LRH to this day deeply, there it isn't turds out of the raisins to them. Those are like milestone, solid, high level theta knowledge to them. You know what I mean? That's like pretty much the really the good stuff, like that keeps them aboard. Now, I wanted the supernatural, but to be real. So I wanted the body thetans to be real. I wanted the out of the body to be real. I wanted us to be ghosts in the machine, just like the Sting, the Sting song, the ghost in the machine thing. I thought that us ghosts could eject out of our heads because it says that in Parts of Man. It says it in Parts of Man. It says that in Creation of Human Ability. And it's right there. It's like be 3 feet back of your head. You know what I mean? And then some
All right,
people
now
have
here's
had
the
them.
thing. I'm gonna make this clear because
Yeah.
I get it. I get what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And you and I separately at another time can talk about that.
Yeah.
But right now these people are here and they have
Oh,
questions.
go ahead. Sorry.
So I want to make sure we get their questions answered. And
Sure.
then we can talk all we want. So let's just make sure we get those. So the first one is question from Style Audit, who was in Chicago. And it's why do they hide? Everyone wonders and
Mm.
comments. They pull down shades and remove doors and door handles. And I think it's all part of Hubbard's paranoia.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that would
They,
be specifically, it would be, just the theta and theta. They don't want people barging into their offices, their,
they're wonderful places.
yeah, all these little desks that take the people's monies and sell them a book. I mean, they should truly, if they're still trying to keep up their book sales, they should just put up signs in the windows. Sorry, we're renovating inside. Buy our book here. I mean, they should get more creative. I mean, that's what the exec strata, the think tank, was supposed to do, but
Right.
they can't outthink these things. The other thing,
No.
they're what do you call it? Ossified. They're stuck in Hubbard's ruts. Too many stops, like there's
Right.
remember, like, anyways, they're using all of the policies to stop rather than to be creative and outthink of it. And I think that's a major lesson. They don't have enough on the ground thinkers, but you would like this new Amir Isali, the man who just got out
Right.
from Scotland. Look
Right.
at him. He's
know.
like your ideal good modern Scientologist, and they kick
Yeah.
him out. He's the one who could transform Scientology. You should put
Right.
him. He should replace Miscavige, and
Absolutely.
and then he would talk to you, and then he would talk to a few of us. And then getting back to the two words that are missing, sincerity is missing, and this takes a long, many years to get. A lot of people understand this right away, but it took me a long time to understand the second word, empathy.
Right.
God, Scientology has no empathy.
No.
If you look at the characteristics of Miscavige, his bad nature trickles down. He's got all the blind spots. Hubbard had had blind spots too. Empathy and sincerity were blind spots for Hubbard, and those are the strong base of, and then that's what's lacking. That's why they pull down their shades, and then they think that Xenu is toxic. I'm a pro Xenu guy, but I'm a pro Xenu teller, and I tell them, if you remember anything as a critic, as a outsider, remember Xenu, and I can tell the Xenu story in 10 seconds. So I tell people, I try to ruin everybody from ever becoming a Scientologist by just telling them the Xenu story simply. And then, so that's what they're hiding from. They're hiding from Xenus. So if you really want to get their goat, whenever they glance at you, always have a little piece of paper with just the words XENU on it and show it to them. It says, don't worry, this won't fry your brains. Just tell them. It's like that. When I was 12 years old, there was this gag that when you're real young, if you have a really bad friend, they have this method of disproving God. Did you ever hear this? The way you disprove God is you take you take a cigarette, which you're not supposed to be smoking when you're 10 or 11, and you hold it up in the air, and then you just shout out, God sucks. And then you're supposed to be hit with a lightning bolt and it lights your cigarette. That's the joke. That
Oh,
just,
how funny.
yes. So anyways, so if you want to do that same joke on a Scientologist, you always have on your possession a little card that says Xenu, and then maybe on the other side it says, don't worry, Xenu won't fry your brain. And then you show them Xenu.
Wow.
And then I like to tell people Xenu caused the wall of fire. That's a good definition, isn't it?
I guess. See, I did OT3
I
and
know.
OT4 and OT5 and
Yeah.
OT6 and to 7 for 7 years. So
But
I
they
don't have
never
quite
teach
the
you how to talk about it.
well, it isn't a matter of how to talk about it. It's a bunch of bullshit. And that's the
Why are
first
they
thing I
hiding?
thought of.
Why
Huh?
are they hiding? They're not
Because it
allowed to
is
talk about
bullshit.
it. They
Because it
can't
is
talk about it.
bullshit. And they can't talk about it because Scientology is like a triangle. And no one, and you know this as the Sea Org, you didn't know about Xenu for many, 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 many until you actually got out.
That's right.
But most people, it's just on the top triangle is when you find out about it. And that's their biggest moneymaker. So they don't want people
Ignorance.
to know
That's
about
another
it because if they know about it, they'll laugh about it and they won't join.
Not necessarily, because I'm an advanced, deep devil's advocate that I can't even have conversations with people because it I think it runs into their lack of really comparative religion kind of understanding. Spiritualism is about spirits, and then there's supposed to be the big God. But Ellery says there isn't a real big God. It's just all spirits. We're just all spirits. We are the Thetan that we are. You're Tori and I'm Chuck. We're two different Thetans. And then Scientology says Xenu dropped all these extra souls that don't have bodies on Earth, and those infest us. And then OT3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is where you free those spirits to then go off and find either new human bodies or continue as spiritual beings like full OTs that don't need to take a human form again. But that is just spiritualism. And you don't really put that in context until you actually do enough adult education, I think. And Scientology doesn't really allow you to do that. That's another reason why I've been obsessed with finally getting back to Buddhism. And then they have got a whole different viewpoint on the spiritual world, and they have the higher spiritual world. Then they have these ghost world, and then the ghost band would be where the body thetans kind of fit because they're messed up ones. They're messed up ghosts that are like all discombobulated. And then there's this whole bunch of ghosts which are like the Hubbard OT ghosts, and then we're humans and we're in the body thing. And then Buddhism doesn't even believe in the Polycanon. Buddhism doesn't even believe in they don't believe that a consciousness and ghosts are anything but a linguistic definition of a particular phase of between before coming to full nirvana. So it takes a little more for me to even understand how can there be all these other upper ghosts. That's why I'm an atheist Buddhism, because I don't believe that there's this whole bunch of other ghosts that are OT ghosts. Like there's these old bands of OT ghosts.
I don't think that's true at all.
You think there are OT ghosts?
No, I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
there's
I'm a
any.
materialist. I'm a scientific. Yeah, I don't believe those. So I only believe in doing the Buddhist practice in order to get the kind of like peace of mind that you get from meditating. That's all.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at on it. But then, yeah, as far as the ghost thing, but I think it's important to do this. An average Scientologist, they can't even have a basic understanding. Now, I thought that okay, better get back to your questions.
Okay, Professor Kakan, question, Chuck, when did you do course supervising training at Clearwater? I'm trying
77.
I'm trying to piece together memories. Okay, so 77
Yeah,
Professor.
77. Chuck
Okay,
Murray. Chuck Murray was the TR's course soup. I finished my TRs with Chuck Murray. Failed as an auditor. Well, I went on to do the internships, a Dianetic internship. Failed as an, got the internship certificate. Became a flag auditor. Had about 5 PCs. Failed on a couple of them. Then I trained under Maxine Hansen. I don't know if he remembers Maxine Hansen was the director of training. She came off the Apollo. John Hansen was her husband. He was like an artist, pianist, and stuff like that. All these Apollo vets, they were all like, in fact, almost all the upper ranks, top SEER members all had skills. Like could play really music. They were artists. Like Dan Kuhn's like a
right,
fine artist.
right.
His wife, Mary Listing, is an author. I mean, like Fred Harris was like a piano player, like classical piano. I mean, a lot of these people are just like off the charts as far as like artistic people. But anyway, so I trained under Al Baker in 77, and then did my internship under Al Baker pretty much, and then Maxine Hansen. And then I did a little bit of course super for the Flag Service Org, but then I became a course soup under Al Baker in the Flag Bureau Exec College. And then from there, the Flag Bureau Exec College formed into the International Training Org. So I transitioned all the way till 1982 when the International Training Org was caused to be ended. And then the International Training School was started up in LA under Edie and Guillaume Leserve and that little band of the CLOEU staff that Guillaume brought over with him, who then occupied the beginning ranks of the executive strata and the International Training School. Then the International Training School reformed into the International Training Org again. At that point, I then rejoined the International Training Org after I was done with the Routing Form project. Was a soup for another year or two, but I was originally trained by Flag. Now, would I agree today that the Splinter mission course supervisors were better? Yes. I would say that almost any of the better earlier people. I mean, I was lucky to do as well as I did, only because I was around some really capable people. And that, like Jim Fiducia, I would consider him way better than me. I would consider all these guys that you trained on, all of these way more capable people. The whole LA area was just full of super capable people that kind of like didn't want to get caught up in the sort of like the Sea Org stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was really good of you people like you, Tori, to even come and help bail out. And that's another thing. There was a lot of really good celebrities that kind of almost wished to support, like Tashura, and then the other.
Oh yeah, Tashura.
Oh my God, these really, really capable people. Like they pretty much gave up their careers. And then I thought of that phrase that Lawrence Wright uses, which is sort of like martyrdom, celebrity martyrdom, to get involved in Scientology. You know, it's really kind of sad that so many capable people. But then on the other hand, if those really capable people are today still practicing Scientologists, are they better and higher quality Scientologists? That's another one of those things I think is an oddity. Yes, they are. Like if you, Tori, if there wasn't all these downsides to Scientology, could you still be like an incredible? You're just as good as Trey Lotz. Give me a break. You know what I mean? in my book, that everybody has their pick of who they would like to be an auditor. Everyone per CS series number 1, case supervision series number 1, the PC gets to be the one who decides whether the auditor is a good fit for them or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the auditor has to take it. I mean, but most really, really, really good auditors, they're sought after. So they don't even notice that. They don't notice being rejected. So if you're a bad auditor, you notice being rejected.
All right,
Yeah.
here's 49ers for Life. Says, Tori knows how to communicate and make you feel her stories. Something a lot of us struggle with. Oh, thank you. Thank you, 49ers for Life. And you, Chuck, I appreciate it. Now, Professor Kakan said, question Chuck, what building was your course room in?
Several buildings. December 1975. TR course room was up on the 11th floor, back dining room part of the mezzanine. Al Lamberti was the course soup for that TR's. That was on that, meaning the training one. Just
Right.
down on the main ballroom was staff study and HCI, Hubbard College of Improvement. So HCI was on the 10th floor. Eventually, HCI then moved over to the Clearwater building and set up in a couple of rooms over there. So I
Right.
trained in the HCI in the Hubbard College of Improvement under Maxine Hansen. When I was doing my training and doing my intern, you do the work clear internship first. I was work clear interning under Maxine in the Hubbard College of Improvement rooms over in the Clearwater building. The admin training for staff, I think, was still on the 10th floor ballroom, just for the flag staff to when you would go to do your own staff course. So it moved around a bit. So this is one of those things about history. That's why when I talk to reporters and you want to get serious about history, you have to go month by month, week by week, building by building, room by room, part of the property, like the same tree that David Mayo ran around and his teeth fell out. Some of us did planting 8 years later there. The same building which kept Bruce Bromley in strict confines was then used as a PR building for somebody else at another time at the ranch,
Right.
at the Happy Valley Ranch, at the place where Jesse Prince said horrible things happened. 4 or 5 years, 6 years later, it was the swimming pool that the kids were swimming in. I mean, so bad things happened in the same places at the wrong year. So if he's trying
That's
to
good.
try
That's
to
well said.
cross my past, so training in the, like I said, the spaces in the Fort Harrison, and then over in the Clearwater building, doing then duty as a work clear, intern work clear. Like when I did my word clearing on Captain Bill, like you're supposed to get the method 2 word clearing on the meter for your full hat. You're supposed to method 2 your full hat. So I got to do the method 2 full hat for Captain Bill. And he was like bigger than life type of person. He was kind of like, did you ever meet Captain Bill? Did you ever meet Captain Bill?
I did.
Okay, so you could have different. He could be like a weirdo. I mean, he was constantly in weirdo mode. He's like seeing spaceships all the time kind of guy.
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I did the work clearing internship on him in the Clearwater building, and then when I became a supervisor, it was under Al Baker in 1977. In the 10th floor ballroom. So we're in the 77 up until like some part of 78. And then in 78, I think 77 or 78, there was a fire over in the Clearwater building. After it was gutted and renoed, then our 10th floor ballroom admin outer org training, we moved over to the Clearwater building. And then for years, I was over the Clearwater building until 83. And then in 83, then I went off to LA in the international base to be on the paperwork project.
All right. So this is another one from the same person, Professor Kirkan. Question: You may have already said this, Chuck, but what levels processing and what levels of training did you get to?
Level,
I think,
sorry,
yeah, I
grade,
think you said you were clear,
grade
didn't
3.
you?
I
Grade
got to
3.
grade 3 uh, course completion. Didn't complete grade 4 service fac. I didn't complete grade 4, nor do the grade 4 internship. So I only got up as far as grade 3, as far as my flag training, flag course room training. And then as far as case, I got to clear. Oh, I got to clear, but clear the new era Dianetics method, and so I've had expanded Dianetics on the RPF, regular Dianetics. Never thought I was. I mean, I never genuinely believed anybody was clear. I thought they're all false clears. They're all false testing. It's all bullshit. I'm
Me
just trying.
too.
I'm waiting to get up to the supernatural levels. We're gonna see how this is all shaked out. But I thought, oh shit, I'll never be able to. I was wooden headed. There's a policy from Hubbard about wooden headedness. Like people are literal. I thought, how can you really believe you're clear? Because all these things that he says in Dianetics, it just doesn't fit. It just, I thought it was an impossibility. So,
Me too. I still do. All right, so the next one is not many people remember the New World Core. It was just a comment.
I lived
From
through the.
Professor.
I lived through. When you become a flag course soup, you have a thing. If you're a Scientologist, you know what your high crimes are. The high crime checkouts. You're supposed to. You have to
Right.
stay up on everything LRH right. So all my years from December 70, from the summer of 75 up till LRH died, we had high crimes. Anytime you came out with a new issue, you had to read it, star rate it, and get your method 4 word clearing, which is on the meter, or you do your method 9, talk, 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 talk. You speak the whole, every line of everything that Hubbard wrote newly, and the other person watches you for any stumbles, and then you sit there and clear your words. I was able to method 9 keeping Scientology working so many times I could read it straight through, no hesitation.
Right.
That's how brainwashed you become.
Yeah. All right. Now, Sieglin said Al was my course supervisor at ITS and PAC in
Good,
LA,
good.
Big Blue,
Yep.
when I first got there. Way cool guy.
Best.
This
He
is
was
Al who?
probably not as good as some of the all-time best course soups, but as far as the personality, he and Dan Kuhn were my two favorite Sea Org members.
Who was Al?
Al Baker.
Al Baker.
Oh, I should have sent you I should have sent you to the link. If any person wishes, they can just go to YouTube, type in course soup time, those 3 words, type that in. You'll see a video of me standing in 1977, and I'm hogging the front of the picture. I'm upstaging Al. Al's all the way in the back, but he was really truly the best, my best mentor as far as the course supervisor.
Right. And then 49ers for life.
Yes, that's where I was born. 1952, that Christmas, Germany, Army baseball. And your cook tell me, you look at the back row, there's a whole bunch of big wigs in this picture. Very German, Jack German, very he's the black guy leaning down in the back. And the man who's looking up to him is Craig Matheson from Scotland. He's a Sea Org member, diehard. The guy with the beard back there is Tony Sheriff.
Ah.
The guy with the
Is
bald
this
head with
Jack?
the
Yeah.
white headphones, that's Jack German. Okay, there's me in 1981, just about a month before I got busted.
Wow. Where are you?
That's in the alleyway near the Clearwater building.
Oh. Oh.
That's my favorite saying. Xenu calls the wall of fire.
Ah.
That's the only
Wow,
thing you need to know. That's the only thing you need to know about Scientology.
that's a great thing. Is that you?
That's me. I'm giving
Wow.
myself a touch assist for my body things.
That's great. Really great. And then we forgot to show these too also. We might as well show these. Right? How, how do you do this? Oh, there you go. That's that's Chuck and I with the Tom Cruise thing behind it.
That's
And
up at
then
Universal Studios.
yeah. And this is at my house many, many years ago when John Dries lived here. Oh, that's a great photograph. Fun. How how can you, Kelly? Can you save those for me? She can't tell me. Shit. This just says remove. How do I get me back? Oh, there we go. There we are. There you are. All right. Now this is another one from. Um, did Chuck say why he was sent to the RPF from
I went
49ers for
twice.
life?
First time, because it's usually such a, if you're a Scientologist, you understand these two words. It is such a wrong indication. You
Right.
you you eventually realize this is bullshit. So I
Right.
forget what the first time was. Oh yeah, the first time was I threatened to bash Jeff Walker's head in with a.
That would do it.
And guess who my auditor was? He was sec checking me and ended the
Ooh,
session very quickly after I said that. John
Jesse.
Horwich. John
Oh,
Horwich. Now I got to tell you something. I thought John was one of the best auditors I had. I only had that one sec check session from him that sent me right to the RPF. I went to the RPF in 1 hour.
wow.
I was at the end base at that time. I'd risen up to be in what was called the branch, which was I was rewriting the OEC check sheet. I was trying to make a more moderate OEC check sheet, one that didn't turn the trainees into being little Nazis. And you know who inspired me to do that? Greg
Ooh.
Wilhair. Greg Wilhair inspired me to do that. And then other student and Tom Martiniano. I don't know, you know Tom.
Yeah.
I think really highly of Tom.
Yeah.
He like it when you're a course supervisor and you talk to students every day and you hear their realizations as they're studying the materials. Tom had some really great ones because he did the whole OEC FEBC too. I mean,
Right.
Tom had some really good ones. I thought Tom was sort of like somebody who should have risen. Almost anybody who gets up to who was a decent human being should have been in the top positions of the movement. And then there were so many public and people like you that that's one of the things I've done. Said, oh man, you should have been in this. I even wrote to people up when I was lower down as a supervisor. I said, you guys got to get Al Baker to go up to be at the top.
All right, good. So Style Audit says, comment, that's because Tori's original purpose to go to California was to be a healer by learning auditing.
Yeah.
So that was part of the Buddhist thing.
Yeah.
It's all right. I wanted to be an auditor. All right, now, Professor Kakan, question. Have any of David Miscavige's bodyguards ever left and spoken out?
Two very important ones. Jackson is pivotal to the whole 2000s era blooming of new knowledge. Amy Scobie, Jackson, Mark Fisher, they're the trio. It's Amy and then Jeff Hawkins. Those four people could corroborate. Jackson was there while Miscavige was beating people up. And then later, the second big quote unquote security guard, well, Jesse Prince as well corroborated the beatings. Uh,
Because Jeff Hawkins just passed away.
yes.
Yeah.
But he in the one protest, and I've looked on the internet to try to find it. He's the one who's standing there with this protest sign that says David Miscavige beats his staff. That blew me away when he did that one. I thought, oh my God, he was beaten by Miscavige, and he's there with the protest sign. That to me
Right.
is the one of the most.
So who was the third one? Oh,
Okay,
I know. It's
Chris Geider. And then to get into the weeds, why Chris Geider? You know why? You know RTC, right? RTC is that administrative echelon that has the responsibilities, and then today Miscavige is chairman of the board. If you look at the original writings from Hubbard to RTC, they're called the Inspector General for Master at Arms, the IGMAA. Guess who was the second IGMAA in the history? First one was Gary Conley. Second one was Chris Geider. So everything that Chris Geider has ever said publicly is super significant. So he was there at the time of the Mark Fisher beating by Miscavige. Miscavige beat Mark Fisher. Chris Geider has said he was there. Jackson was there. I think there were other people there. So there are multiple first persons that are still alive who were there at the David
and
Miscavige.
Devo
was like years later. Was like a good 10 years later. 10 to 15 years later. Devo was there, yeah. And then all of that was by the year 2000s, between, like, if you really piece it the year by year, you would see that there was a big ballooning of the violence in the 2000s. That's what was driving me crazy on the chat sites. You probably remember on all I could think about was the violence, getting the violence stories out. That's why I thought it was critical. That's why I went crazy. And I thought, like, the St. Petersburg Times, Tampa Bay Times guys, they need to go interview Marty. He's willing to spill the beans on the violence. Talk to Mike Rinder. He's been, the rumors were out. He was being beat to shit. And then, getting back to you, Tori, giving you praise for your influence, you and Patty Moore, but you both have the gift of empathy, sincerity, and truly helped me when I first was becoming a critic. And then your big theme, your big lesson. I was like, let's get back to lessons. What's the big Tory Magoo Christensen lesson? Sincerity, decency, empathy works. Okay, so guess how I pleaded with Sarah Mole, and I didn't have a chance to really talk to John Sweeney, but I said, Sarah, here's the pattern. Here's the history pattern that's gone on. The public relations big wigs of the movement will talk to the media once they've quit. Laurel Sullivan did. Vaughn Young did. Mike Rinder's beat the shit and he just quit. Guess what? He's going to be the next one. I said, Sarah, play your cards right. And this was on their first interview, because I was in touch with a woman by the name of Uli Hesse, who was doing the trying to get BBC people to interview. And I was sort of involved at that. And I said, well, okay, you can get the guy who Matt Henderson just passed away. His older brother is 6'9" Mike. I said, you can get 6'9" Mike. And you can probably get this other guy in Clearwater, because Sweeney and Sarah were going there to do the interviews with Mike Rinder. And that's when Mike was on the other side. But I said, because of you, Tori, because of you and kind of like the ARC approach and just the decency approach, be nice to Mike. And they had some humor with Mike. And then there's also, with the story hadn't really broke yet on the violence. Anderson Cooper didn't do his thing, and the Truth Rundown hadn't quite yet come out when they did the first BBC show, so it hadn't quite fully broke. So it was in the minds of some of the media. They know the violence is going on because Mark Fisher, Amy, and Jackson, and not I don't believe Chris Geider had come out with it just yet on the violence, but there were enough people to corroborate the violence. And then when you heard about the beatings, and then Marty was out, and then the word was out that the beatings were going on, and they were even crazier in the 2000s. So that story had to break. And then finally, the Truth Rundown guys from Tampa Bay Times, those guys, the ones that Tony Ortega praises, and they really deserve it. They went over, interviewed Marty, and then interviewed Mike, corroborated all the violence shit, and then, and of course, then that just finally came out. But anyways, I told Sarah, do the like the bad cop, good cop. You're the good guy. I mean, you're beyond that. You're like the real sincere, genuine thing. And I believe that empathy that she showed Mike helped Mike. And then what's his name? Sweeney was the one who was saying, confirm that you were beaten. That didn't Miscavige beat you up? Didn't he beat you up? Like that harsh confrontation he did with Mike. And then, so I thought it went back and forth. And I think, and that's helped. I mean, I always thought that kind of helped crack Mike. But again, I think, I think today, actually, history is kind of a cause and effect thing. And the other thing I used to think was, guess what? When you got an abusive group, it'll eat itself up, and then you're going to have whistleblowers, and the whistleblowers will go to the media because the media is interested in telling the story. And the other thing that I did way back was I went and studied the Columbia Columbia University's journalism schools, sort of like rules, and they had a chat site going about how unreliable us Scientology ex-members were. So I thought, okay, how do we get this? You got to have a bunch of senior exes like Jeff Hawkins, Mark Fisher, Amy Scobie. You get enough senior officials who can cross-corroborate being in the same room when the bad shit was happening, and then they'll run with it. You get multiple sources. And then these people aren't lying. So that's why the media and the book authors could go ahead, and their material is solid. You got enough people. So you couldn't get Scientology to sue anybody for slander, because Mike Render or Marty Rathbun going into court, they'd be dead. It's just like Debbie Cook, when Debbie Cook goes in there and talks about getting her finger bent.
That's a good idea, though, to get them all together.
But ARC lady, that's not true. You're genuinely, whatever. I get emotional.
Now, question, did you ever talk to Dr. Gordon Melton?
Yes, I did. I did extensively, and I've written about it. If you were to just go on Google search engine, type in quotation marks, Chuck Beatty, quotation marks, space, quotation marks, Gordon Melton, spell his name right, quotation marks, put it on your search line, patiently go back through Marty Rathbun's comments, which are searchable, and you'll find my comments there. I've made at least 10,000 comments. I've extensively, and then also that'll get you into the ARS, Alt Religion Scientology databases, where my extensive comments about my interactions with Gordon Melton for several years. I met him in person. I was very respectful of all the apologists, academics, and in some respects, I still to this day believe we're just not. I mean, if you're not really educated into certain things, you're not in their league of what they're used to. And I went ahead and read Gordon Melton's. He had an encyclopedia. And in fact, one of my videos, I have a video at my chest at my own YouTube site about all of my materials. And on the shelf is the encyclopedia, 1 volume, big old massive thing, which is Gordon Melton's claim to fame. That's why he was the top expert. He did he also was responsible for the Encyclopedia Britannica article on Scientology. That stuck in my craw because when I was on the RPF and I was going through all the encyclopedias, when you're in the RPF's RPF and nobody cares about you, you get your 5 hours of study and you can do whatever the heck you want. So whatever materials are in
Sure.
the course room. So I read all of the reference books. I read all the Encyclopedia Britannicas that I could read. And I read every single article on Scientology ever written by any of these ones. And it kind of stuck in my craw that they didn't ever define the same thing, the same problem with Scientology. Scientology doesn't define itself properly, adequately in
Right.
terms of the supernatural spiritualism of
Right.
Scientology, and they don't dumb it down. Scientologists and even the exes, nobody even you kind of have to unbrainwash yourself and go back and become like a regular layman going, what the hell is this all about? What is Scientology all about? It's about soul memories. They think we're a soul, and they think these other souls, all the body thetans, their memories, the R6 implants, are like piercing, and whacking into us, into our mind and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of freeing all these spirits of all their memories. It's a pseudo therapy quackery stuff. But anyways, but none of them could even think like that. Now, a few of them did. No, the time that I met Melton, I met Doug Cowan, and I met James Beverly, and was that it? Those, and then Melton, and then Professor David Bromley. And I've read a lot of their materials, and then I read James Bromley's. I'll leaf through his encyclopedia. Professor James Beverly was trying to be sort of like the replacement to Gordon Melton. And then Gordon Melton, to this day, he's a emeritus professor down in Baylor University, which has a really extensive religious studies program. And I'm pro religion at this point in life, even though I'm an atheist. I do think, yeah, yeah, I am pro all of the traditional religions. And I kind of come to the view that, I was right. When I was on the RPF, riding around on the bus, going to the hospitals in LA, and we'd go by the Salvation Army place, I go like, if I want to blow, I'm going to blow right here to the Salvation Army. And another funny thing was the Clearwater Methodist pastors did reach out to me and said that anybody who's a Sea Org member in Clearwater who wants to blow just has to go to one of the traditional churches there. They're all in agreement that they'll help out anybody transitioning back to life.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Well,
and
that's
that's
a
been like
good
that for
thing.
years. We have the Aftermath Foundation, we have the SB TV Foundation, but you also have your traditional religions
Yeah,
who will do the right thing because they're just good, decent people. So that's why,
that that's good.
and that's a big contrast. If you just contrast Scientology to a traditional religion, that's
Right.
immediately why the people use the word cult. That's why the average person
Right.
uses the word cult.
Right. Right. Very true. What happened to your light, Chuck? Uh-oh. Chuck. Chuck, come back. Chuck, 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 Chuck. Uh-oh. Chuck. Ooh, this is spooky. Chuck. Chuck. What happened? His computer might have shut down. Oh. 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 Now wait a second. Are we on StreamYard? What happened to Chuck? Let's just wait a minute. I think so too. Yeah, let's wait a minute. Oh, Chuck, he left. Right? Should we re-invite him? Hi, Tori and Chuck. Great channel. Thank you all for what you do to expose Scientology. We love you both. Thank you, Zinnius. Have you subscribed to my site, Zinnius? If you haven't, please do. We have a little bit of an error here with Chuck. They need to connect their mic camera. Who are they talking to? Hmm. Well, there's Chuck's site. Well, that was a good interview. It really was. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know what happened. Oh, yeah, we have his phone number, though. Wait. Hey, Kelly, can you call him and see? I have his number if you don't have it. Let me see. Let me check. No one hears it. Okay. Oh, you already, it goes to message. Okay. Well, doesn't seem like he's coming back, does it? It looks like everybody left, did they? Professor Khan is here. Ooh, Sieglin, I'm not sure if she left. That was 9:41, it's 10:06. Style audit 9:33. Well, I think we'll have to call it because it doesn't seem like he's going to come back. What do you think? 37 is still here. Oh, okay, good. Do you think I should wait or call it? Thank you everyone for joining us. Yes, thank you for joining us. I know someone that did research for Gordon Melton for one of his books. Interesting. I'll have to look him up, find out about it. But did we put up Chuck's website? Yeah, you did. Here it is. There you go. So it's just Chuck Beatty. And he has over 1,000 videos, so there might be some really good ones. So check them out. There we go. All right. Sieglin said, okay, it was a great interview. Things happen. Yep, at least it wasn't at the end. We sure appreciated Chuck's time. Yeah, he was really great. I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked talking to him. I'm sure he'll be on the replay. Okay. All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for staying on, and thank you, Chuck, for a great interview. It was I really appreciate it. Thank you, Kelly, for being my moderator, and thank you all for coming on. All right. I'm going to say good night now, and I think should I say good night? I think so.